Hi everybody, it's Van Time with Chuck and Deb, and today we're going to be talking about Man, Mission, Mate. It's a story from the Bible that we think, Deb and I, really illustrates well the process that we ought to go through when we're looking for a mate. And so I'm going to tell the story, and then Deb's going to read it. But first, let's let Deb say hi.
Hi.
All right. Good. So here's the story. God creates man. He forms him out of dust, and then he gives them a task. He wants them to tend the Garden of Eden. And as he forms the man and gives them a mission, he acknowledges it's not good for man to be alone. So the very next thing that God does is parade all these animals in front of Adam, and he names them. And then when it's found that there's no suitable mate, he puts Adam to sleep, pulls a rib, and then forms woman out of Adam and names her Eve. And so here's the story from the scriptures.
Okay, and this is from Genesis chapter 2, starting in verse 7. Then the Lord God formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living creature. And the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground the Lord God made to spring up every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then verse 15, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. And then verse 18, then the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him. Now out of the ground the Lord God had formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all livestock, and to the birds of the heavens, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper fit for him. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept, took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man he made into a woman, and brought her to the man. Then the man said, this at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man.
Now, the way that's properly said is, whoa, man! Because Adam was probably pretty excited about this person who matched him. Now, the order that things happen is really important. So, hon, what do you think the significance of forming the man, then giving him a mission, and then giving him a mate? What's the significance of that order?
So, I guess what you can think about that is that, first people need to be formed. They need to be mature, physically, spiritually, emotionally, before they can understand or do whatever it is that God's called them to do, the mission. So you got the formation of the individual, who they are and what they feel like, and then the calling, what God is calling them to do, whether it's specific or general. And then they can figure out who a suitable helper is for that calling that they have.
Doesn't that make sense that before we have a mate, we probably ought to be healthy in our physical or mental or emotional or spiritual person and be well formed before we jump into marriage. I mean, 15-year-olds have the plumbing, but just because they could have children doesn't mean that it's a good idea that they get married. So there's all kinds of areas that we need to mature in. And then God gives them the mission. And so how do you know what kind of person you need as a helper, a helpmate, until you kind of sort of know what you're doing? You don't have to know 100%, but at least have some direction in life from God. And then we got this whole business of naming animals. Hun, what do you think is the reason that God made Adam name all these animals?
Well, I think you see, God tells him, hey, it's not good for you to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for you. But then it doesn't happen immediately. It's like, he realizes there are all these animals. They all have helpers that are suitable for them. He's naming these animals, almost in some ways figuring out what is not going to fit. And so there's a tension building of there's got to be something for me that fits me. So in some ways the naming animal phase, can be very long, but it's informing us, like what's a good fit, what's not a good fit, what are we looking for, what are we not looking for. So that's a helpful process in figuring out what is a suitable helper.
So when the process of naming animals is finally done, and some of you may be in the throes of that, when it's finally done and he sees Eve, he knows this is the right one. She is a suitable helper. So it's very wise to be formed and then know what you're going to do, and then choose a mate based on that. And she will be a suitable helper. Man, mission, mate. Any last words?
I guess, if you're a male watching this, you're like, okay, what is God calling me to do? And if you're a female, what is God calling me to do? And are those things compatible? But also, for me, it was, could I support what God was calling Chuck to do? Is that something that I could come alongside and help with? And that's pretty important. If your spouse feels like they're called to maybe overseas missions, it's very important that they find someone who is a suitable fit for that type of calling and mission. And so it's, pretty important to, kind of figure out A before you figure out B before you get C.
All right, so there you have it. Man, mission, mate. Hey, if this is helpful to you, pass it on to somebody else. And it's been great being with you today. Take care.
I don't know what it is about Butterfinger, but it's like just yumminess, It's like, I'm not a huge peanut butter fan or butter fan, but Butterfingers is like a whole different name. Because it's simple. It doesn't have like 5 ingredients. Like Snickers is great, but it's got peanuts, it's got caramel, it's got chocolate, it's got, Butterfingers is just like this mass of candy surrounded by yummy chocolate, and that's it.
I think somebody likes Butterfingers.
Well, I don't have it that much. Like maybe once a year I'll have them, and then I remember how much